What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, and for our next installment of our Warlord guides, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Wolf, the Allfather, Santa himself, Logan Grimnar. And he is, of course, your Space Wolf, Space Marine Warlord. Coming in at 49 points. I believe he's the most expensive of the Space Marine Warlords. And he comes in with a pretty hefty chunk of health, especially at top level, almost 400. And has the combination of Furious Charge, and then also gets Berserk, which I have trash talked as a secondary trait because you don't want your Warlord on the table long enough to benefit from Berserk. But, you know, there are cases where it can be useful. A little top off in damage is good. But the secret sauce with Logan is his ability. When an opponent is killed by a melee attack, 150% of any excess damage is passed on to an adjacent card. Now, a couple things. This only passes once. This passes first from left to right. So if you kill a middle card, the excess damage will hit the card to the left. If there is no card to the left, then it will hit the card to the right. So that's just a quick thing on that. A couple other things too, that is a melee attack. Doesn't matter when that melee attack happens or how. So Death Blow counts for that, Furious Charge counts for that, and then your base melee attack counts for that. So with that in mind, kind of some of the best pieces to build a deck around him are going to be your cards that are your heavy hitting cards. And because of the amount of health and damage he has and the amount of damage that he does, he's a very powerful endgame warlord, so he tends to benefit from a thin, extremely aggressive deck. So some of your top pieces are going to be this guy here. Of course, weighing in with a really high base melee attack, and then also the Enrage base stat. Once you get this guy up to Furious Charge, so up to level 9, he is a very strong piece in a Logan deck. Has the range damage just to have it. Has a bunch of health, but mostly has just a lot of melee damage, and then also has that Enraged to kind of even top it off. He's one you'll see a lot in Logan decks. Being epic, it takes him a while to really get that good in the Logan deck, just because it takes a while to get to that Furious Charge level, and it takes a while to get to that 100 base melee. Up to that point, he's still good, but he definitely really starts pulling his weight there, and then again when you get to that 110. Because at that level 6 mark is where you get to close to your kind of base peak melee damage, where he's really useful. Then again, I mentioned that Death Blow is a really powerful piece here. So of course Sven comes in as another strong piece, also has a good strong melee attack, not quite as high, but he does have the benefit of having Death Blow and having higher ranged, and I believe coming in with higher hit points. So he's a good piece, and the Death Blow is super strong with Logan, just because that will trigger the overflow damage and can be real good. One of the great things about Logan is that because of that overflow damage, he does actually counter Akaran very well. Because if Akaran's card gets to come back with that 5 health, good for him, then that next turn you can really nail that sucker and do a ton of overflow damage. And that overflow damage is 1.5 times, so that 150%. So if you hit a card with 5 health with 35 damage, that's going to be 30 overflow damage, so the adjacent card that takes the hit is going to take 45. So just to go ahead and do that math real quick for you. Benefits a lot from Fear. Like I said, Furious Charge. I do enjoy the raw aggression aspect of Logan, that he benefits so much from Berserk. But of course, Fear will keep your cards on the board longer, so Mephiston, of course, is an incredibly strong piece with him. Your expensive legendary Space Marine cards just keep kind of being good with everything. So your Mephiston, Asterath, of course, and then Asterion with that Furious Charge. And Asterion and Asterath have that edge where they do that Furious Charge, and that can trigger the overflow damage by itself, and then they will follow up again. Another key piece I should mention here is that overflow damage ignores shields. So if you have a big shielded card somewhere on the board, you can put your heaviest hitters on against the adjacent bodyguards and kill them to take down the shielded card without having to take down all the shields. So that's a really powerful piece. Of course, Tyberos being another excellent piece with both Fear and Berserk. Also epic, so it's going to start really getting good at level 9, so it takes a while to get there. So he's a pretty level-dependent piece, but there are common cards, common and rare cards that do fairly well. Of course, Njal is always good, and one of the things I like about Logan, so just to talk about why Njal is good, he's got a decent melee attack, but also he has that. Of course, he's got Inspiring Presence, but then also that Psionic Blast will help you clear shields and weaken cards so that you hit them harder and do more overflow damage with your other cards. Now, it's kind of an expensive piece to do that, but that is one of the utility pieces that he offers in a Logan deck. Of course, some other ones being Tor, pretty much all of your melee-focused legendary Space Marine cards really do well in a Logan deck. And then Belial, it being an excellent piece as well, because he has the decent melee, comes at a cheaper price point than several of the others, but then also has shields and Inspiring Presence to really kind of top things off. Because there is kind of a balance with Logan that you do run a very aggressive, fairly thin deck, and so it can be overwhelmed or just kind of peter out before you do that final damage to the opponent. But I think you will find that if you play very aggressively with Logan, he does serve you quite well. Of course, that overflow damage being what it is, target acquired is very, very good, melee ready is very, very good, and you do want cards that really kind of benefit from that ability. So you want things that stay on the board, hit very hard in melee, and then if they do die, you want to die that take a really long time or have them do a bunch of damage when they die. So either Death Blow or Fear or Shields or any combination of the two. So these two are also some mainstays here. And I think I started saying this, but one of the things I really love about Logan is he's a Space Wolf, and he combos best mostly with Space Wolf cards. So you could really make an all Space Wolf deck with Logan, and it's both thematic and fun, but also a very powerful deck. Arjak has that beautiful combination of a decent melee attack, and then also shields and decent hit points. So he takes a long time to remove, and the whole time is doing significant damage both to a primary target and secondary targets. And then again, Ragnar, no surprise, is going to be about your best bodyguard you can possibly have with Logan, because he comes in at 40 points, which is on the upper end of the points cost, but low compared to some of the other cards I've already talked about. Has Enrage, starts with a good base melee, good hit points, and then also starts getting Death Blow when you get to level 9, which will then trigger the overflow damage and melee attacks again. So he's one of the best cards I've put in there. He and Tyberos are the ones I kind of reach for first, unless I get one of those max level games where I can bust out Asterath. If you have Asterath up in this level range, then of course he should be your first pick in almost any Space Marine deck, except maybe Tolmaran. But yeah, so since the campaign is up, I'm going to go ahead and play that. I'm going for the high bonus, so you can see this is basically a max bonus deck, but this is also a Space Wolves campaign, so I get that absolute joy of getting to demo Logan, and then also getting to really lean on Space Wolves here. So there are some more powerful pieces that I would not include normally if I'm playing in the ladder that I will include here, just to get the bonus for the mission. Ooh, right off the bat, we've got a good matchup. Now, this entire campaign is against Eldari, which is great because they have a lot of pretty scary cards and some very scary melee. So one of the worst matchups for one of the worst matchups for Logan is Eldari, because Rakarth has the durability to not die when you need him to. And then the Avatar is also a bad matchup because as you kill cards, they then hit you back harder. And they also like Death Blow. And then the Avatar himself, having Fear and really, really good stats, is one of the better Warlords to be poised to take on Logan in the endgame. So those are actually two pretty rough matchups for Logan, which is why this campaign is such a good matchup to demonstrate the Warlord. So these hopefully will be fairly short games, so I can get two of these in. And now here, this positioning is really, really important. So I'm going to position Ragnar on the left so he can start doing that overflow damage and hopefully set up a really potent hit on the middle to hit some damage through these shields here. Hopefully I didn't just outright kill the guy in the middle with that. I did. Darn. And that is something you want to watch out for, because the overflow damage is good, but it's also a bit of a liability because you can kill those key cards by accident, as I just did there. So yeah, that is something to be careful about, and one of the things that keeps... You could sort of sum up Logan as a bit of a blunt instrument melee attacker. He's a little bit less so, actually. So like Helbrecht, it doesn't matter if you kill the target card, like you want it to die. With Logan, you want to set up these haymakers where you weaken a card, and then you hit it with a really hard hit later. So accidentally overkilling is a problem with Logan, and it's something you need to watch out for, which again is something that makes him a more interesting Warlord than just kind of a blunt instrument melee Warlord. Although he is a heavy melee Warlord. So very much like the Space Wolves themselves, you get that inherent savagery, that super aggression, but then also get a little bit of actual tactical counterplay that you need to keep in mind when you're playing as him. So that was our one match. We're going to play one more just to go ahead and try it out. This is a relatively easy one. I'm still fairly early level in this campaign. It's going to start getting really tough later. But you can also see that my Space Marine cards are not terribly high level. I talked about a lot of cards that will be better once they get to any second now. Okay. I talked about several of those epic cards that'll be better once they hit level 9. I don't think any of the cards I have are level 9, or any of my legendaries are at level, I think, 6, where they get the secondary trait at level 2. Yeah. Level 7, excuse me. So level 7 legendary, level 9 epic is really the sweet spot for Space Marine Warlords, especially the melee-focused ones, especially the ones that don't do any kind of stat buff. That's one of the reasons that Logan really likes Berserk, is that his ability wants you to be hitting as hard as possible. So melee readies and Berserk are ways to really supercharge those attacks, which is a really good way to get the most out of the Warlord. Ooh, okay, all right, it got spicy. Still low level, but oh no, it's not. It's level 6. God, okay. I forget that there are 2 Wraith Knights, so okay. Well, this got interesting real fast. It's a thin deck. He's only got 4 cards left in the deck, but this is going to be quite the matchup because that thing is going to hurt really hard. But it doesn't have fear, which is good. Dang, okay. Bump it above. So I'm going to lose a bunch of cards here. We'll probably see Logan himself hit the board. So this is good. We're actually going to see kind of a tough matchup. And this campaign did promise to be a little bit more difficult. Nice. Got that guy in the middle. See that overflow damage starting to come into play. Of course, not as much as I needed to take down the Wraith Knight. But if I can keep the left flank clear, I don't even need to take out the Wraith Knight to take out the Avatar. And that, again, is a piece of Logan's kit, is he's very, very aggressive. So it really prefers to just take the aggressive approach and get to the throat as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, you're likely to sort of peter out and run out of the hits that you need. So we're going to get interesting. I got that heavy melee buff. And I did mention that the overflow damage goes left to right. So briefly there, I considered putting Ragnar in the middle to do the overflow damage on Zagor. But if I do that, then I would just overflow onto the Shining Spear, and I wouldn't kill this. Now, had I done that, though, I would have killed the Shining Spear instead of just killing the one. So that's something to watch out for. But this does... I'm going to kill him in shooting. And that's the thing, too. It's like Helbrecht, it is worth considering... Ooh! Worth considering... Well, I didn't expect that. Taking cards in your deck that don't have a ranged attack, so you're not... So if he'd done a ranged attack there, see, this guy would have gotten killed in ranged, and I wouldn't have gotten the big overflow damage that I want. Okay, let's see. Into Logan himself and see if I can take this thing out. This may be a mistake, because I will then be facing down the Avatar with Logan, but we'll see how this goes. Nice, okay. So I may have enough to just take this thing out outright. If I don't, I do. But if I didn't, if I got it to really, really low, this would be a great setup to take down the Avatar, because we may be at the level of the game where the Avatar has fear. Yes, so it's rank 1, but he's got it. And now I am concerned, because he's facing down Logan, and this is a really tricky part of the mashup. And again, a little bit more of that strategy. Logan thrives on aggression, but you don't want to overextend if you don't have enough to actually get the kill, which at the moment I don't. But I should fairly comfortably. Now, had the Avatar been on the board for a little bit, so this is actually a big win for me playing Logan when I did, is that had I played him later, the Avatar could have been on the board building up some additional melee attack, while Logan wasn't there to kind of take him down. So by playing Logan early and playing more aggressively to get to the Warlord, I really helped myself out there, where had I waited even a little bit, the Avatar would have been a scarier combatant and may have been able to take me down. So there you go, that's 2 games. They were campaign games, so you didn't really get to see it in ladder play, but hopefully that's still helpful. I do really want to emphasize that, again, there are some common cards that work very well with Logan, so you don't have to have those legendary cards to do well. Logan himself is legendary, and you do want him to be high level because he's so expensive. If you're building a Logan deck, it's likely to be somewhat thin, and he will spend a lot of time on the board. So you can throw in some Medicae, you can throw in some Taunt to kind of keep him alive. We are fortunate in Space Marines to have a couple fairly common Taunt cards that also have pretty aggressive melee. This guy being a great pick, because he's got the Medicae, he's got the melee, has the range debuff to go ahead and do a little defense there, and also decent melee damage to go ahead and kind of take things down a little bit, but then also add some of those overflow attacks. Another good one here is an actual common. A lot of the Blood Angels and Black Templars cards have Berserk, they have decent health, and they have high melee attacks and low ranged. So you have range to strip shields and do a little bit of attack back, but it's unlikely that they'll be getting kills, so you will still be setting up your Haymaker melee punches without worrying too much about getting accidental ranged kills. Of course, this guy, stats are completely insane nowadays, so for the cost, this guy's a really great piece too, especially with that melee ready. A lot of really good common pieces can work very well. Let's see this guy. I mean, it's not terrible, but he's got a high ranged attack, so you kind of want to avoid that. This is another great one. Decent ranged attack, but he does have the melee and is taunt and has a nice combination of hit points, cost, and melee damage. So there are a ton of pieces to consider. Space Marines are lucky to have a pretty robust lineup, including your commons, but Logan's really going to take off when you get those legendaries and epics up and running to the point where they'll do fairly well. So hopefully that's helpful. Another last note about the overflow damage. If you do bonus damage, such as with Big Game Hunter, that will also increase the overflow damage. So Big Game Hunter is a really good one to include in this as well, so that you can really kind of cause some real mayhem if you're hitting tough targets, which are usually so you can use their bulk against them, which is one of those things that's very fun to do. Yeah, kind of those underdog things you can use to really win with Logan. So there we go. That's Logan Grimnar. Hopefully that was helpful, and good luck.